A woman wants to be led. For a lot of men, you have this beautiful gift where you can just be ready to go right away. And for a lot of women, it takes more time. I like to think of it like a string of yeses. How can we
Yeah.
invite in from moving from one yes to the next?
Welcome, Kirsten. Today, I have invited Kirsten Trammell, sex and relationship coach, to talk about empowering men to become great lovers. So, Kirsten, let's dive into our first wisdom bomb. Why do men too often unintentionally turn women off?
Yes. So, I think that there are a number of reasons why or how this can happen. The first being starting really before someone even enters into a sexual experience. And this is often when a man might be constantly looking for some kind of a validation or unconsciously really ultimately giving away his power in a relationship dynamic. And this is where I think boundaries can be really, really important. And for a man to really not feel afraid to actually say no in a relationship dynamic, whether that's something that is unfolding in a dating space or within the confines of, maybe a woman asking him to watch a rom-com or to go shopping with her. And it's really something that he doesn't want to do, but he wants to please his woman, which is so beautiful and wonderful. And by saying yes, he's ultimately giving away his power. And that can put a couple into a really unhealthy dynamic. And oftentimes, a woman wants to be led. And if a man is saying yes when he really means no, that generates a lack of trust and really takes that dynamic and flips it on its head, where now a woman feels like she has the power and she's guiding things and leading things, when ultimately most women are craving the opposite of that. So looking at how can a man and a woman navigate this type of a dynamic from a different way, that's kind of the first place that I would start looking at, is what's happening in a relationship dynamic before even stepping into turning a woman on in the bedroom.
So, what I'm hearing is that when he is in his masculine, he turns her on, by having boundaries, by knowing what he wants, by leading her. And when he's collapsed,
Mm.
like most nice guys and looking for validation, then he basically is not leading her and she's the one having to make the decisions, and that turns her off.
Mm. A beautiful way to put it, yes, of the collapsing and then the being in a masculine state, definitely.
So before the bedroom, man, be confident, lead her, know what you want, what you don't want. And
Mhm.
then in the bedroom, how do
Yeah.
men turn women off unintentionally?
Yeah, I think that the unintentionally piece is, I think, really important here, because I think that especially the men that I've worked with, and I'm imagining the men in your community, they have really beautiful intentions and are stepping into learning about sex from a place of wanting it to be beautiful and wonderful and giving to their partner. And so, what I think sometimes can happen unintentionally is that there is this desire to step into a sexual state really right away. And understanding the difference, oftentimes, this is kind of broadly speaking about male versus female arousal, that for a lot of men, you have this beautiful gift where you can just be ready to go right away. And for a lot of women, it takes more time to get to that place. And so I think that building slower into that can be a really important component of actually turning a woman on as opposed to turning her off. I think that oftentimes man gets excited and he's with his woman and wants to just go for it and be with her. And that can be a little jarring at times for a woman, and then she can ultimately really shut down, which is the opposite of what he's intending. So how can we slow things down? How can you really build one step at a time, slowly over the course of an exchange? So starting with, checking in with her, starting really to read her cues and signs of saying, where is she at? Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10 of her sexual arousal state. Is she even aware that sex is on the table right now? And is that something that she's interested in? Just starting to pick up on some of those cues can be really, really important as a way to build into that sexual space.
I love it because, the advice I give to the men I work with is not too quickly, not too directly,
Hmm.
and learn to build anticipation.
Hmm.
And so I'm loving what you're saying about men learning to read cues
Hmm.
and learning where she is at. What is your sense about men's capacity, men's ability to read women's cues?
Mm. I mean, I come from the lens and the belief that men have a really innate ability to perceive their space around them. And like, I don't know, I necessarily like to use the word empower them, but I think that there is a lot of power within a man to be aware and to acknowledge what is truly unfolding with a woman in front of him. And it's just stepping into that mindset of knowing I know how to read my woman and I am here and I'm showing up in this power in this place. And so starting to I think also it's a little bit as well of trial and error of checking in and having communication with your partner about was that a cue that meant that you were becoming aroused? Was that a sign that was actually communicating, yes, I am interested in more. Yes, let's go further. Yes, let's take this up another step. And really looking more at these sexual experiences from a place of experimentation as opposed to like, this is a performance, it's game day, I can't mess up. I like to think of it like a string of yeses. How can we
Yeah.
invite in from moving from one yes to the next? And that could look like asking, would you like me in the very beginning, like, would you like me to give you a foot rub or would you like to cuddle for a little bit? And seeing if either of those are a yes. And then from there, it's like, oh, would you like me to move this massage from your feet to your whole body? Oh, is that a yes? And slowly building from one yes to the other. And
This will be our second video, our second wisdom bomb on how to turn her on. For now, I would love to stay a little longer on the pain too many men have of turning her off intentionally. And so, do you have more wisdom for the men listening and for the women listening too?
yeah.
Because it's really important to know what your play partner, feels and has in mind.
Mm.
So, any other wisdom?
Definitely. So I think one of the things that's really important is actually looking at the act of sex itself. So what are you actually doing when you are having intercourse with each other? Because oftentimes, if the sex isn't ultimately what someone is enjoying or getting pleasure or connection from, they're probably not going to want to keep returning to it. And so, how can we look at with curiosity the type of sex that you're actually having? And I think oftentimes what happens is that, and this is, to no fault of their own, a lot of men get into the pattern and the habit where masturbation is something that is hard and fast and quick and secretive. And so when you build that kind of pattern within yourself and you step into a sexual experience with your woman, that is kind of what you've been conditioned to. So that is how the sex shows up. And so this can really create a pattern where there's a quick release and really a lack of satisfaction in the long run for your partner. And so taking a pause and reflecting on, okay, what can I do differently when I'm in a self pleasure to explore something different within myself? And then how can I bring that into the relationship dynamic, into the sex life with my partner? And how can we actually take our sex life and make it something different? Because I think that newness and that novelty are something that is so important when it comes to sex, especially if you're in a longer term relationship. We want to keep things alive and we want to keep things interesting. And I think women, we want it to be different and exciting. And so how can we bring that into this space? And I think this is something that it's not just men's responsibility, it's also women's. But I know we're speaking here specifically about how men are unintentionally turning women off. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, so basically, routine and a very strong imprint of how men learn sexuality, which is through quick masturbation, and and then not learning women, not learning the arousal, not learning to be with them playfully, and with curiosity and then learning to offer something fresh in the moment. You know, one thing that I'm seeing is that women get bored way quicker than men in the bedroom. And so, man, that doesn't
Mhm.
mean changing position from your head, you know, like 22 seconds that and 40 seconds that. This doesn't mean that. It needs to be present with her,
Mhm.
which is what men I've seen struggle with. Do you see that as well? The presence?
Definitely, yeah, and I think that that kind of comes in a variety of ways, but one of them being, with this desire to be able to last longer, that oftentimes men are taking themselves out of the experience in order to stay in it longer. And women can notice that. We notice if a man is not fully present and connected, and that can be a turnoff. And our minds have these crazy ways of taking ourselves to do places where we're like, oh, he's probably thinking about somebody else or this or that. And really his intention is to be able to be in the sexual experience longer. However, the presence is removed as a result of that. And that creates a lack of interest long term for the woman.
If you cannot wait until part two of this wonderful conversation with Kirsten, please hit the like button below, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. In the interim, here are two videos that Kirsten made to help men be more successful in the bedroom. And here are two videos I made to help men better understand women. Enjoy.